This is the Shia on the 10 Commandments of marriage or relationship. The concept of marriage does not apply only between men and women in Judaism. Our entire relationship with our Creator is considered a marriage. Our wedding anniversary is the holiday of Shavuot, the day on which we received the Torah. And just as a marriage should be continually renewed, so too, each and every year, we once again relive the giving of the Torah, our marriage to God. We received the Torah as an entire people, men, women, and children. And we are taught that Mount Sinai itself, the smallest and most humble of all the mountains, was held above our heads, symbolizing the wedding canopy, the chuppah. When we received the 10 Commandments, the foundation of the Torah, this represented the giving of life, of the marriage contract, the ketubah, representing our love, commitment, respect, responsibility within this relationship. Every time a man and woman marry as they stand under the wedding canopy, it is a reenactment of our wedding day with God, the day we receive these 10 commandments. Therefore, it is clear that when we look more deeply into these commandments, we will find not only spiritual advice for enhancing our marriage, but very practical and essential guidelines as well. The 10 Commandments. The first commandment is, I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt from the house of slaves. Let there be no doubt. I've met many people who feel uncertain they married to the right person. They may have been married for decades, but they're still not quite 100% sure. Some may have been sure at a time, but then doubt crept in. Was I too rushed or immature when I made my decision? Is he the right person? Would I be happier with somebody else? Did we both grow in different directions? Become different people in the years since our marriage? Yes, you were immature when you got married, but that is a good thing. You met when you were younger, still flexible, and you grew up together. You did both develop and change since your wedding. But if you keep each other involved in the changes and the growth, they only serve to make you more interesting in each other. Make no mistakes. Doubt can kill any good marriage. I hate to think what it can do to a shaky one. I've had experiences with women who were content only after recognizing and wanting to accept, this is my husband, this is the man that I chose to marry. And upon recognizing that decision, you recognize that it's this man you are intended to stay with, work with, live with, raise children with, pay bills with, figure things out with, and grow old with. This man and only this man. Now, in the first commandment, the first word is Anochi. Anochi means I in the Egyptian language. Why would God start the Torah, the very first word of the 10 Commandments, in a foreign language and not in Hebrew? At the time, we, the Jewish people, had just come out of Egypt. Although we used our Hebrew language, Egyptian was also very familiar to us. God chose to communicate to us in a common language, some common ground with in which to start off our relationship. This holds a lesson for all of us. At some point in life, a woman might think to herself, oh, he's so different from me. Still, with effort and devotion, common ground can be found. If you have to speak in a foreign language for a while, do so. The use of the word Anochi, I, teaches us that God put himself, his very essence, into the Torah. The lesson for us is that we must likewise put our heart and soul into our marriages. Who took you out of Egypt? Why does God keep reminding us where we came from? It is so pleasant. Is it so pleasant to keep hearing that we were once slaves? Can't we just forget the past and moved on? We all come from somewhere. Much as we would like to start fresh as newborns from the wedding day and have no baggages, the fact is we all come into our marriage carrying our baggages. childhoods, habits, expectations, differences, and perhaps even, God forbid, trauma. If we have something in our past that we need to deal with, we must do so and not sweep it under the rug. Anything swept under the rug today will only grow bigger by tomorrow or next week or 10 years from now. Sooner or later, it has to be taken out, examined, and laid to rest. Sooner is much better than later. You can really hurt yourself as well as other members of your family if you trip on all those lumps under the rug. Until we acknowledge our baggage, the temptation exists to blame our insecurities on our husbands. Is there something within us that needs to be dealt with? Something from way back? We are not the only ones who have a past. Our husbands too come from a different home, went to a different school, perhaps grew up in a different culture. As similar as we think we may be, we are still going to be different. Sometimes a woman gets upset about something her husband does or doesn't do because she makes the assumption that he should know. For example, you may have a way of celebrating your birthday, growing up where you had a cake and received presents, but things may have been done quite differently in his parents' home. So, if you never explain what you expect on your birthday, you can't be upset. If your husband doesn't know what you want, if he doesn't know that you want a cake or presents, then you cannot be upset. Each partner must take the other's past into consideration. The second commandment, do not have other gods before me. Don't look at other men. Don't compare your husband to other women's husbands. Comparing only leads to trouble. Recently, I heard a story from a marriage counselor who said one night her phone rang, and it was a woman who she didn't know. She wanted to talk. She was unhappy. She was married several years and suddenly realized that her husband was not as smart, polite, fine, well brought out, sophisticated as ... As she spoke, the marriage counselor felt that part of her sentence was missing. He's just not as good as? As whom? She asked. She would not answer. Pressing harder, she asked if they'd been out recently with another couple. Taken aback, she exclaimed, "Oh, you saw us at the restaurant?" The fact is, she didn't even know who she was talking to. She assured her that she had not seen them, but explained that it was clear she was comparing her husband to someone else, and asked her to tell what had happened. She wistfully described how the night before at the restaurant, her friend's husband had pulled out the chair for his wife, taken her coat, and respectfully hung it up for her. Her own husband never even noticed her chair or her coat. The other woman's husband had known just what to order, and had even known what to order for his wife. Her own husband sat there waiting for her to order for him, announcing that he hated fancy food. Then he joked around about people who eat anything other than steak and chips. The other man had been so sophisticated and gentle, while her own husband insulted the waiter. Why, the other husband had even known all about wines. She had come home feeling very disappointed in her husband. This is absurd. Of course, knowing which wine to order does not make you a good husband. One could argue the opposite is true. Focus on the good that is in your husband, the things that matter. By recognizing them, you will strengthen them. Thanking him for his patience while learning with the children, for example, will strengthen that quality in him. Acknowledge and reinforce the good. Comparing only leads to trouble. This is your spouse. There is no other. The third, do not say God's name in vain. Don't speak about your husband lightly or needlessly. We sometimes have a tendency to put down our husbands in a laughing, joking way. Why? Is there a purpose? What good can it possibly do? A couple shops together at the supermarket. As they stand at the checkout counter, the wife remembers that she forgot something. She sweetly asks her devoted husband to go back down the aisle and get her favorite cereal. As she watches her husband go up and down the aisles, dairy, frozen, produce, cleansers, looking for her favorite cereal that she forgot, she turns to the woman in the line behind her and she says, "Can you believe this guy? He's going through the whole supermarket looking for cereal. Men. Now, what was that for? What did those words accomplish? Why is this condescending husband bashing necessary? We all have a need to air out our feelings. It helps to hear that others deal with similar situations. That is a certain behavior. It is just typical male and not be taken seriously, personally. This is why I strongly encourage women to have a mentor, a mashpia, we call it in Hebrew, a good friend, somebody to talk to. We all need that heart-to-heart sometimes. It is healthy to have someone close and reliable with whom to confidentially and privately discuss issues that are weighing on us. That is not needless talk. This is a conversation with a purpose, where one speaks of one's husband with respect. Quite different than publicly putting him down. A couple married only a year came to see a marriage psychologist. They were in shock. They had just heard that a rumor was going around the wife's town saying that they're getting divorced. The trouble was that they were the last to know it. There was no truth to it whatsoever. The mystery soon became clear. The wife was a very young woman, now living in Israel, her husband's country. Immediately following their wedding, it was necessary for her to accustom herself to a foreign language and an entirely new culture, far from home and far from anyone she knew. At the same time, she had to adjust to married life. This is never an easy challenge. And of course, there were some difficult moments. One day, not long after getting married and moving to Israel, a friend called. Hearing her friend's voice brought her homesick to the fore. The stressed newlywed allowed herself the luxury and release of a long, tearful, whining session to her equally young, as yet unmarried, and still in school friend. She cried about how lonely and homesick she was, how difficult the adjustments were. This inexperienced young schoolgirl, clearly the wrong person to confide in, hung up the phone quite unhappy and overwhelmed. She had been handed a burden that was too heavy for her. So she shared it. She told her mother that a friend was miserable in her marriage and wanted to come home. It wasn't long before the divorce story spread around town, especially since nobody in America ever saw the woman who had actually made the adjustments quite admirably in her own way, managing quite well with her new husband in Israel. Fortunately, this couple is still married today, albeit with a lesson learned. We must remember to speak to others about private issues only when there is a clear purpose. And we must be careful to choose to whom we speak to, as well as when and where. The fourth, remember the day of Shabbos and keep it holy. Remembering is a good thing. Create good memories for yourself and your family. Time spent together, a smile, a note, a picture, birthday parties, and family affairs are all wonderful memories. Pull them out of your memory bank when things get tough. Give your children memories to share. We all have good memories of some sort, collected from our childhoods, that surface at different times in our lives and give us strength. Create new ones in your married life together. Encourage yourself to dwell on the good times. I once spoke with a woman who works with couples going through divorce. She wanted to help couples reconcile before they moved on to something as tragic and final as divorce. She told me how she knows whether there's hope for a couple to reconcile or not. She asks them conversationally, "So, how did you two meet?" If they answer with a little smile, with a glimmer, or some positive emotion in their eye, she knows there's still hope. If they say they can't remember or look back at her blankly, she knows. Keep literally means watch. Shabbos is the day when we reinforce our bond with God, a day we spend time on spiritual pursuits as opposed to another day, another dollar. Make time for your marriage. Take a day off, an evening away, some time with no phones, doorbells, or other distractions. A very busy man was always promising his wife to take time off to be alone with her, but it never worked out. He just didn't have the time in his day. He said she had no doubt he was truly busy with important things. One day, she told him that one of his biggest supporters had called, saying he would be coming into town. She told him she scheduled a meeting for them in the lobby of the hotel where the big supporter would be staying. Her husband was very grateful and he marked it down in his calendar. When he showed up to the appointment with 2 hours clear to spend with his biggest supporter, he found his wife waiting for him. She said, "I am your biggest supporter and I need some time with you. Realize who your biggest supporter really is and give him or her the time and attention he or she needs and deserves. Ultimately, your relationship stands to profit, to sanctify it, to keep it holy." What can make our marriage richer, stronger, and longer lasting? We must recognize that there is a third partner in our marriage, God. Holiness is the most important word in a Jewish marriage. Treat your marriage as a holy union it is. Marriage is not just about the two of you. It is not about what he wants or what you want. It is about you, him, and God. What does he want? If you both focus on pleasing him, you will ultimately please yourself and each other as well. The subject of kedusha, sanctify, in marriage is a topic in its own right. One must always remember that under the marriage canopy, the chuppah, God was invited into this union and thereby made it a legal marriage according to the law of Moses in Israel. As long as we respect and uphold that, making a part of our daily lives, we will merit that our home will be blessed by God. The fifth, honor your mother and father. Take this literally. Honor your parents and parents-in-law. It might be difficult at times. That is why it is a commandment. But if you make the effort to honor your parents, you will gain, and so will your children. There is such a thing as too much involvement. The primary influence and focus after marriage should be one's spouse, not one's mother. When balanced, however, healthy and strong connections with the older generation are beneficial to everyone in the family. In honoring our parents, especially once they reach old age, we must learn to give them what they need and what they want, not what we think we would want for them. In recognition of their age, we need to respect their whims. As we respect and honor our parents' wishes, although they may make no sense to us, so too should we honor our spouse's wishes. More than once, I've received calls from men and women calling in advance of going to a counselor, asking me to convince their spouse to see things their way. Basically, what they're saying is, make him think as I think. Make him feel as I feel. People are different. It is so much wiser and more practical to expand effort on respecting the differences rather than trying to erase them. The sixth, do not murder. The Torah commentator Ibn Ezra says that the prohibition against murder means with your hand or with your tongue. Physical abuse and verbal abuse are clearly both forbidden. When you speak cruelly to someone, you kill his or her character. You destroy their personality. Instead of blossoming, you make the other shrivel. You may have seen this happen. A very talented, happy, and outgoing young man or woman seems to just withdraw after getting married, as if somebody killed their self-confidence. One of the main gifts of marriage is the self-confidence we can attain from a spouse who has confidence in us. A spouse's attitude can either build or, God forbid, destroy. Living in a critical, hostile environment is a killer. Living in an environment of love, acceptance, and support, on the other hand, builds up a person's self-esteem, setting the stage for success in every aspect of life. As a spouse, recognize the power you hold. Make the effort to encourage, sincerely compliment, and express appreciation. If stealing someone's confidence through verbal cruelty is the equivalent of murder, then uplifting the confidence of another can be the equivalent of giving them life. Do not kill. Don't kill his personality, his ability to succeed. Every husband and wife can and should be the cheerleading squad for the other. 7. Be faithful. What does it mean to be faithful? It means recognizing that there are areas in marriage that are private. It means that we don't reveal our personal issues to the public. This is betrayal. It means that both a man and a woman should respect the private space and time within marriage as sacred and know that what happens there stays there. It means trust. A man was at work and heard two of his co-workers discussing an incident that had happened between a man and a wife. As he listened to them laughing at his story, he turned bright red. He recognized the story. It had happened in his house. They were talking about him. He realized that his wife had told her friend, who had told her husband, who was now telling his co-worker this extremely private story. To him, this was a lack of faithfulness on her part, a very important breach of trust, and it was nearly impossible to convince him to go back to her. 8. Do not steal. Giving credit where credit is due won't cost you a penny, yet it can buy you the world. A man I know earned his degree after many years of study. Whenever somebody congratulated him, he replied, "The credit really goes out to my wife. She took on extra jobs to support us so that I could learn. She took the kids out of the house so that I could study." I know a speaker who starts every speech by thanking her husband. After all, she is standing there, beautiful, calm, and well prepared, while her husband is home putting the children to sleep. She shares the credit with him. Number 9, do not bear false witness. The commandment to be truthful reminds us to have honest and open communication in our marriage. Talk, say what is bothering you. Please, just please say it. We don't receive the gift of prophecy under the wedding canopy. Some women mistakenly think, if my husband really loved me, he would know what is bothering me. Not true. If you really loved him, you would just tell him, simply and politely. The same applies to the husband. Don't accuse, share. Stick with I sentences. I feel uncomfortable when, or I worry that. Every time you keep something inside you without revealing what is bothering you, you add a layer of bricks to a wall of your own making. At first, you can decide to step over the wall whenever you want. After some time, it requires a little jump. Okay, you think, you can jump over such a low wall whenever you decide. Soon, you may need a ladder, but you still can get over it if you really, really want to. As the years pass and you keep adding one row of bricks after another, the wall grows so high that you can't just get over it anymore. Tragically, communication is now totally blocked by countless issues, some tiny, some huge, issues that were never aired up and never dealt with. With expertise and much effort, the wall can still be brought down at any stage of life. But think how much more productive and less painful never to have constructed it in the first place. And the 10th and last commandment is do not covet. Don't be jealous. Now, who would be jealous of one's own husband? Many women are. In a lot of situations, especially if the woman is home with the children and her husband goes to work, they're jealous of their husband's freedom. Husbands can generally come and go when they wish, while the wives must find babysitters and make 100 arrangements before they can walk out the door. Men just call it, "Bye, I'm leaving," and breeze out the door. Often if a husband is stuck at work and the wife is stuck at home with supper, homework, bath times, and bedtimes, this can lead to jealousy and resentment. Every husband should bear in mind the burden that his wife carries and to try and help her as much as possible. In addition to that, he should appreciate and understand her. His verbal appreciation alone can lighten her load more than he can imagine. Every wife should bear in mind that she is unhappy and resentful. She should sit down with her husband, or perhaps with a mentor, mashpia, and figure out what she can do to achieve satisfaction and set herself free from any resentment. Maybe she needs to get out and be in the company of other women. Maybe she needs to work additional hours. Maybe she needs to work fewer hours or stop working altogether for a while if she can. Perhaps she needs more help in the house or presently has inept help. Maybe there's one particular friend who's making her feel this way. Mother-in-law trouble, who knows? With a little thought and some discussion, she can figure out what she needs and attain it without hurting her children. And she can stop being jealous of her husband. The 10 Commandments apply to all aspects of our lives and in every situation. If we look clearly, carefully, and deeply within, through adhering to these laws, we will first be able to rectify ourselves, and from that, we will have the ability to rectify the world around us. The sooner we are able to fulfill the 10 Commandments, both literally and figuratively, the sooner Mashiach will come and we will be redeemed. May it be now.